Okay, it's a day late, but no one was around. We're learning the Ilu Nishmas Yisrael Dov Ben Yosef Aryeh Olav Shalom. It's the father, Dr. Press of Dr. Press, uh, a real Yankee, and a really Torah Jew. He loved Jews all over the world. He was just a very pleasant person to be around. His easygoing nature and an expert in his field. And his son has followed in his footsteps, and even taken perhaps a step farther with his prism lenses. Okay, let's see what we were discussing, what I was discussing yesterday. So, I had some crazy hour. I was talking to the roosters. Anyway, so we had Reb Shimon. He went ahead and he said that you could do Kabbalah with the left hand, right? Reb Shimon said you could do Kabbalah with the left hand. This is a tremendous chiddush. We said that he he dashed in the pasuk v'lakach. He dashed it on the la'achrav, not lefanav. So he didn't go back lefanav. He went la'achrav v'lakach. V'lakach is the Kabbalah and the etzba. The point being that the etzba is the right. So we had a limud that we thought initially you need two things to make the etzba, the kohen and the etzba, and then we said no, either one would do the job. Either one would do the job. And we then asked on that, we then asked on that, uh, how could you say either one will do the job when in fact we find that taking the Avarim to the Kevesh, throwing it on with the left hand is okay. And it says Kayin, it says Kayin over there. So the Gemara says, well, that's not Ma'akev the Kapara. Now it says Kayin by Srika. It says Kayin by Srika. So if you need both, right, then you need the right hand. Okay? So let's start from over there. Vari Kabbalah. It's about I don't know, parallel to the Taisus Vari Srika, about 2 lines down after that. Vari Kabbalah de Kosabu Kahuna, V'dava Ma'akev Kaparahu, V'tanan. Now, L'chayra, like Reb Shimon, you need both. You said you need both Kabbalah, you need Kayin and Etzba. If that's the case, with Tanan Kibel Bismal Pasul Reb Shimon Machshe. Okay, so l'chayra, why should I'm famishing you? If it says Kayin alone, you should need the right hand. Yet it says by Kabbalah Kayin, and you see that what Reb Shimon says the left hand's good. It says Kayin. So if it says any place it says Etzba or Kayin, it means right. It says Kayin by Kabbalah. That means right. Says Reb Shimon, you could use the left. And for the Gemara, Reb Shimon Tati boy, Reb Shimon needs both. He needs Kayin and Etzba. Not one, he needs both. Not or and. Right? Not or, but and. Kayin and Etzba, not Kayin or Etzba. For the Gemara, me boy, Reb Shimon Tati, does Reb Shimon really require both? Vatanya, Reb Shimon Omer, Kol Makom Shnei Mayad, Eino Eli Yamin, Etzba Eino Eli Yamin. So you see, Etzba alone, without Kohen, does the job. On that, the Gemara answers, Etzba loy by kahuna, kahun by etzba. You're right. If it says etzba alone, it means right. If it says koyin, it needs etzba. So mamela, anytime it says koyin, if you could use the left, koyin's not teaching me anything. Right? Again, if you're telling me that koyin needs etzba, it means koyin alone does not tell me what's it teaching me. If it's not teaching me a din and right. What's it teaching me? It's teaching me that you have to wear the big day kahuna. I spoke out yesterday, Rami Sada from the Netziv. You might think Kabbalah is a passive act. So even though we learned previously, fellas, that mechusa begodim, if you do the avoid, it's possible. You would have a havamina that perhaps Kabbalah, since it's a passive act, you're just going ahead and receiving it, would be possible, would be kasha. Kamash Malan, it says kohen by Kabbalah to teach me bikahunam that they have to wear in big day kahuna, and this is where I was up to yesterday. Now, zrika deloy kasabahu ela kahuna. So now, according to Rav Shimon, that it should be good with the left hand. Because you just told me, Rav Shimon says that what it says koyin needs etzba to make it right. But if it doesn't say etzba with conjunction with koyin, you could use the left. It says koyin by zrika, and I assume that Rav Shimon holds that zrika with the left hand would not be good, right? Elakut v'tanan zorik b'smoil puzzle v'lei polig Rav Shimon, and Rav Shimon doesn't argue. So what are you telling me? That the right hand, that koyin alone does not make the right hand. It says only koyin by zrika, and you need the right hand. Abaya polig b'brisa. He does argue. He argues in the brisa, not in the Mishnah. He argues in the brisa. The Tanya kibul b'smoil. If a person does kabbalah b'smoil, Rav Shimon machshir. We know that already from our Mishnah. Zorak b'smoil. Here's a chiddush. Zorak b'smoil pasul. If you zorak b'smoil, it's pasul. Rav Shimon machshir. Rav Shimon says it's kosher. Okay, so it comes out. If you say etzba, it means right. If you say koyin, it usually means right. According to Rav Shimon, that's according to everybody. According to Rav Shimon, if it says etzba, it means right. If it says koyin, you would need etzba, but koyin alone would not do the job. Now we have a few gezerah shavas yad, right? L'chayra, that since it says koyin, why would you need the gezerah shava? If your whole thing is to prove right, why do we need a gezerah shava to prove right? If it says koyin, it should go ahead and do the job. Ve'ela, says the Gemara, Hod Amar Rava, Yad L'Kemitza. We have a gezerah shava Yad L'Kemitza from Mitzoira. Just like Mitzoira is with the right hand, so did the Kemitza, the act of putting the fingers in to take the flour by the Karbi Mincha, has to be the right hand. Regel L'Chalitza, that the Chalitza has to be the right foot. Oizen L'Ritzia, when an Eved wants to go ahead and Ivri wants to stay with his master, he gets oiled in his ear. How do you know the right ear? Right? Why would you need right Lamali? Mid the Rabbi Baruch Chana Nafka. We can learn it out from Rabbi Baruch Chana. What's his rule? If it says koyin, it's right. So it says koyin by all these things. So why do I have to go ahead and have yad regel? Why do I need these limudim? The fact that Rabbi Baruch Chana's rule should apply. Once it says koyin, it means the right. That's it. Once it says koyin, it means the right and nothing else. So why would I need a gezerah shava to create right? And for the Gemara, I'll tell you what I need it for. Right. God l'koimates. One is the actual koimates. Right, you do the kmitza. Again, we've spoken this out quite a few times. He was magdish the flour. He brought it to the base of Mikdash. They put it in a klishares. He went ahead. He did this, and whatever is contained within these three fingers is kmitza. He then would put it in other klishares, bring it over to the mizbeach, and go ahead and be maked the koimetz, and that maked the shirayim. Good. So now, how do you know that this is with the right hand? And one is to teach me likidush. Right, Rashi says likidush kaimetz bekli sharetz shehei biyamin sheyochzag hakli shumakadish boy biyode hayamanis. Okay, so this he has this in his right hand. This kli, a koyin has to hold it with his right hand. So that's what I need it for. I have koyin to teach me kamitza, and I have the limud of what? Of yad, that it has to be the kli that's being held by the koyin has to be held in his right hand. Okay, it has to be held in his right hand. That's what it teaches me. Good. Now, Amid Aleph, Rav Shimon delay boy kiddush koimetz. We had this earlier. Rav Shimon says you can go over, walk over, take the koimetz and burn it. You don't have to put it in the kli. In addition, Ulamandi Amar Rav Shimon nami boy kiddush koimetz bismoil. Achshuri machsha yad the Rav Lamali, and even the Manda Amar who says that he does need kiddush bekli, but he holds you can hold it in your left hand. So it's machlokes, right? Whether you need to go ahead, take the kaimitz, put it in a kli, or take the kaimitz and you can put it in a kli, but the kli is the left hand. So therefore, what are you going to do with the yad, which is screaming out right? Yes. In other words, either way, what's it teaching me? Right? What's it teaching me? That's what the Gemara wants to know. Says what ila kamitza atzma, if it's for the kamitza itself, mid Rav Yehuda brei Rav Chia nafka. Dam Rav Yehuda brei Rav Chia, my time with Rav Shimon, dam akra, kodesh kedashim he kechata sukasham. If this sounds familiar, fellas, we had it earlier on Daf Yud Aleph. Okay, so we said that mincha is like a chatas, like an asham. You might remember that a chatas you put with your finger, and an asham you go ahead and spill the blood with the kli. That's the difference between the two. The chatas you daub on with your finger on the chuda, and this one you do kli. So why does he teach me? If you're coming to do it with your hand without putting in the kli, it has to be your right hand. Kechatas. Bola of the bekli, if you're coming to go ahead and put it in a kli and to throw it onto the fire, right? Of the besmoil kasham, you do it what with shmoil kasham. So we see that what according to this that what you could do it with your left hand. So we have a kasha. Once it says koyin, I know what it's right according to most places. According to now, we have other limudim that says koyin, and yet you had to come on to other limudim. What's the reason for the limudim yad yad? Again, let's focus on yad yad because that's our parsha. What's the reason for it? You don't need it. It says koyin. So we have one day. You know what needed for? We are to teach me there's a double yad. There's a yad for the actual kaimitz, and there's a yad for holding the kli itself. That's yad yad. That's yad yad. Okay, I need that second one. Good. On the other hand, let Rav Shimon that you do not need it, right? What? Let Rav Shimon that you don't need it. So what do you use it for? What are you using yad yad for? Again, Rav Shimon says either you don't need to go ahead and bring it over there directly, or you could do it with your left hand. On that, the Gemara answers like that the you needed to teach me about the koimitz of a minchas chayta. We said if a person is oil of a yoyre, let's say Shmias Kol, he's over in Shuas Eidis, or he went to the base of Mikdash Tameh, or he's over in Shuas Bitoy, right? So we know that he brings the carbon oil of a yoyre. If he's wealthy, he's going to bring a sheep. If he's poor, he's going to bring birds. If he's really poor, he's going to bring a carbon mincha. The minchas of a chayta does not get gemished mit ale. It doesn't get doesn't get what? It doesn't get mixed with oil. It doesn't get mixed with oil. It's so you might think the following. The reason we don't go ahead and put oil in, that it should not be a nice carbon. Ki kometz lebet small nami tiskasher. I might think b'di evet if you use your left hand. Kamashmalon yad that you have to use your right hand. So therefore, in other words, there's always a little extra din that yad tells me that I will know from the fact that what it says, kayin. Okay, very good. One second, I want to see if okay, we're up to the Mishnah on Chaf Hey. Okay, there's a halacha of nishbach, guys. We've had this halacha before. The Kabbalah has to be directly from the tsavar of the animal. The blood has to come from the neck into the what? Into the kli. From the neck into the kli. Now, if you pick up the knife, right, and it drips from the knife into it, it ruins it. It has to be from the neck, v'loy l'dover acher, min apar, v'loy l'dover acher. So, guys, the airspace, right? The airspace of the kli must have halacha of the kli itself, because if not, it would be coming from another place. In other words, you can't possibly put the neck of the animal in here, right? So it has to be ushecht, and you have a receptacle, and the blood is dripping from that receptacle. That airspace has to be considered part of the kli. That's the thrust of today's share, the rest of the share. Because if not, it's like coming from a different place, and you can't do that. It's coming from the knife. It's got to be coming from the neck of the animal itself. So the avir over there. So we'll see the ramifications. Says the Mishnah, Nishbach hadam ala ritzba. If the dam did not make it into the kli, but it fell directly on the floor, the asfai, and you gather it, puzzle. You never had a Kabbalah. It's puzzle, right? It's puzzle. Tan Rabbanan. The lokach hakoyin hamashiach midam hapar. The koyin mashiach he should take from the dam hapar. Which dam? Midam hanefesh. That's the dam that's in the circulatory system. That gets pumped out from. If you ever saw a shchita, as soon as they shecht it, the blood comes zooming out. That's being pushed out by the circulatory system. That's dam hanefesh. V'loy midam ha'or, not dam from the skin. In other words, when you make the incision, like we get a cut. That's dam ha'or. V'loy midam ha'tamsis, that's the dam that drips. Midam ha'por, why do we learn from midam ha'por? Dam, and this is what we need for the whole share. Dam me ha'por yikablenu. Dam from the por, you should receive it. Now, if you look at the pasuk, guys, it says, "V'lakach hakoyin hamashiach mi dam hapar." We're going to darshan. We're going to take the mem from the dalid and put it from in front of the hay of the par. We're going to pay a little jumble. V'lakach hakoyin hamashiach dam me hapar. You see what I did? I took the mem from midam and I put it in front of the hay. So now that's the limud, guys. Now that makes sense, right? uh, Mi dam hapor, dam me hapor, dam from the por yikablenu. Disal kedaitach mi dam hapor kedichsiv mi dam vafilu mixistam. We all know by now when you have a mem in front, what does it mean? Mixas. Mem usually what means part of mi dam, part of the blood. So you can't darshan it that way because you need the whole dam, right? But for Rav, vafilu mixas v'amarav hashoichit tzarchi kabel is called damai. Some shechs has to be makabel all of the blood. Shenemar ves kol doma yishboich. Ella, what do you have to darshan? Midam hapor, dam me hapor. Yikablenu. Ukasava goyrin. We subtract. We're subtracting the mem from midam. Umaisifin, and we're adding it on to the word hapor, dam me hapor. And now that is a very important source. So again, it has to be from the Vidarshan. So Gorin, Umaisifin, Gorin, we subtract the mem, Umaisifin, Vidarshan, you make the drasha, dam mehapar. But of course, me dam means mixas dam, right? We said the mem means part of. Okay. Kufa, V'hafriya delent. Amar of Yehuda Amarav. Hashoichet sorich she'yikabel is called damoy shel par. You got to get the whole thing. Shenemar, Ves kol dam hapar yishpoich. Fred Gemara about b'shirayim ksiv. That's not speaking about Kabbalah. That's speaking about shirayim. And for the Gemara, im ena inli shirayim. Again, shirayim is after you did the avodah sadam, you're going to pour it on the side of the mizbeach. Says the Gemara. So if that pasuk is speaking about shirayim, it's not speaking about Kabbalah. So mehecha teisa that you need all the dam for Kabbalah. Says the Gemara. I'll tell you why. Im ena inli shirayim the halesa lekuli dam. Okay. Guys, you're going to take all the blood and throw it down the drain. You don't have all the blood. You did zrika. In other words, if you look at the words itself, the pasuk itself makes no sense. Take the whole blood of the animal and throw it down the drain. The art's called the remnants, right? You don't. Remnants means that there was something used before, so therefore it can't mean going on the shirayim. Ella, what is it going on? It's going the actual Kabbalah where it's possible to receive kol adam, right? The less of the dam, the kula inyit. So tenei inyit look b'Kabbalah. Again, it doesn't make any sense, shirayim, because you don't have all the blood. Put it in a way that what you'll have at least is, where you can have all the blood, which is the Kabbalah, and not shvichas hashirayim. Amrav Yudam Shmuel. Hashoichit tzarich sheyagbia sakin l'mayla. He's got to pick up the knife, guys. He has to pick up a knife that the blood from the knife doesn't drip in, because if it does, it's not coming from the dam, it's not coming from the neck of the animal. It's coming from the davar acher. Shenemar, v'lochach midam hapar, v'lo midam hapar v'davar acher. Not from the dam of the par and v'davar acher. So therefore he lifts it up and v'dam sakin b'mayim b'kaneach lei. How do you go ahead and, since this is kochim, what do you do with that dam? Guys, you're not makabel it, right? Guys, bishlam, if you makabel the dam, so there's no question. But now you're telling me the dam on the sakin, you're not makabel, what do you do with it? Says the Gemara, Mabaya, bisfas mizrak. You go ahead on the outside edge of a kli. I know it seems like, I would say you wipe it with a baby wipe, right? But it seems that's not so, it's not spakavidik, put it that way. So what do you do?
Do we have a place that they wiped it on the Makam Shchita?
What?
We have the wipe on the Makam Shchita. I think I remember learning that, or on the animal itself.
It rings a bell. It rings a bell. I think you might be paraduma that you do it. Baruch. Guys, just so you should be impressed, Benji was mechaber to Taisvis. Okay, look at Taisvis, bottom Taisvis. Bisfas mizrak, pirish Rashi, b'chutz, on the outside of the kli, in other words, if you're going to go ahead, guys, if you're going to wipe it in the middle of the kli, it's going to fall in, and that's the davar acher. So you have to do it on the outside. B'tocha mizrak, the imkain havile davar acher. Ve'en lahakshos. Mitanish fregen. The Gabi Hasad the para amrinon. Gomar lahazois mekaneach yadav begufa shel para perakama de menachas. Avaloch alem mekaneach le lesakin begufa shel para. We're not doing it. The fisha oz hoya sakin mole nimin. Le hoya oid no lishchait. Yeah, Baruch. If you're going to go ahead, Baruch, if you're going to go ahead and take the knife and put it on the animal's neck, it's going to get full of the fur, the hairs of the animal. Then it won't be good for shechita. So therefore, we don't put it by the paraduma. We do it, but not we don't do it by the karbonis because you have to use that knife again. It's going to be full of nimin, and therefore you don't do it. That Baruch, very proud of you. I'm going to tell Simcha.
No, Tosfos wasn't mechaber. Tosfos said ein
Ashpa.
lahak. Tosfos said ein lahak shois, and Benji asked anyway.
He's come a long way, Lenny. He used to just say duchsach. He used to just say one word, duchsach. He's come a long way since then. Okay. Anyway, so very geschmack. So again, what's the flow of the Gemara is that it's telling us you have to wipe it on the outside because if you wipe it on the inside, it would be the same problem as if it dripping from the knife itself. That would be the same problem. Kidichsiv, where do you see the Besvasa? Kidichsiv, Kipure Zahav. It seems Kipure means to wipe. Amrav Chista, Amarav, Yirmiyah Barava, Hashoichet, the Shoichet, Sarach Shayiten Amid Beis, Vridin L'toich HaKli. He has to take the Vridin and put it in the Kli. Now, we all know that Shchita is accomplished by severing the Kana and the Veshet, or the trachea and the esophagus. On the two sides of the trachea and the esophagus, there are veins or arteries that a tremendous amount of dam flow out. When you do the shechita, make sure that is in the ear space of the. Again, you can't put it in the ear space of the kli. Like this, it'll be kabbalah. It'll be makabel. Make sure you do that. Rashi, v'idin tloicha kli, then havi kabbalah mehapar shapir. That'll be kabbalah mehapar well. The high toich, when it says you're putting the vridin inside the kli, lav dafka, the hole efsha, it's not possible. You can't check the animal with its neck is stuck in a kli. Ela al aviroi shel toich kli, guys. It means the avir the kli. That's very, very important. So we can see from here that the avir, because the rest of the shir is predicated upon the idea that the avir of the kli is considered mitoich the kli itself. Because if it's not, then it's the davar acher. Guys, you need to lump this. If it's not, it's the davar acher. If it's not, it's the davar acher. Okay. Remind me to tell you a geshmaka pshat that somebody told me. Very Moshe Aaron Friedman, the going. Anyway, Shulei Mizrak. Back in the Gemara. Amrav Asi. Itmanami, Amrav Asi, Amrav Yochanan. Vridim tzarich sheyiru avir kli. They have to see the avir of the kli. Now it's very geschmack, right? Not mitoich. It's got to see the avir of the kli. Now, guys, here's the shaila. Now, let's say you have a kli, you do the shchita, the dam is over here, it's going, but there's no bottom. Do you say that since do you say you don't need a kimunach dami, it's considered in the kli? In other words, if the kli didn't have a bottom, was then over here, it would be the kli. It's only when it's in the ear space we have a shaila. So do we say it's kimunach and therefore if it falls on the floor you could pick it up and use it, or do we say there's no kabbalah and therefore you can't use it? That's the Gemara shaila over here. You're being makabel in a receptacle. Guys, in other words, if the kli had a hole in it in the first place, there's no shaila. That's not a kabbalah. If you had a kli with a hole in it in the first place, that's no shaila. You had a full kli. But in mitten derinen, as it goes in and it's coming down, it fell out. It went south, south of the Brikayim. It went south, right? Now the do you view it when he did the shechita over the airspace as if it's in the kli and there was a bottom, and therefore when it fell on the floor you could use it, Adu view mitzias. It went right through the kli. It's like what? It went directly from the tzaver of the animal onto the floor, and you can't.
I'm sorry, Rabbi. The kli broke after the shechita. Is that what
After the
happened?
shechita, right? Yeah, after the shechita, right? After the
That's,
shechita, after the began to fall in, the kli broke, right? After it began to fall in, right? Look at Rashi. At higia dam la'aver mizrak lebein doifnei mizrak. It broke before the blood got in between the ears, the kli itself. Ba'oid hadam lemayla mehen. The dam was above the kli. Umiu al keneged avirohen. It was opposite the airspace. It was that opposite the kli. The havridin royin ave kli binyan, because you need it. So you did the shechita right now. It was mamish the place it's supposed to be. If the kli remained intact, everything would be kosher v'yasha. The kli bottom, a good line, bottoms out, right? The kli bottoms out, yes? And now here's the question. I can view it as once it hit the airspace, it's considered in the kli, and even though it's not kimunach dami, even though it's lav physically munach, but it's kimunach, tremendous nafkamina. It's considered a Kabbalah. You would then be able to take it from the floor and use it. Or no, do we say it's lav kimunach dami? It's like you shechted it directly from the savar onto the floor, and you can't. That's really the shaila at hand. Avir in the end that will not come to rest is like considered rest, and you could use the dam. I love kimunach dami. So Amalei, so Rabbi Yochanan told Rav Asi, right? Excuse me, Rabbi Yochanan told Rav Asi, Tinisua, you learned it. It's a brisa. You learned it. It's a brisa. You learned it. It's a brisa. Chavias shemunechas. Okay, outside. I give a little information before him. Para aduma. We know it has to be mayim chaim el keli, and you would put the ash of the paraduma, and you put water in there from a mayan, from a live source, from a fountain. The case over here is where you have a kli. The kli is not for the purpose of. You didn't think about it for paraduma purposes. So now you have over here, you have water coming down. It's going up into the airspace of the kli, right? It's going up to the airspace of the kli. Good. That's the case. So now, chavius shemuneches tachas hazinuk, a chavius that you put underneath the flow. Mayim shebesoichai, the mayim that's outside of it. Shebesoichai, the mayim that's inside the kli. Again, since you didn't put the kli there, guys, for the purpose of for paraduma, it doesn't work. Ushebechutzaloi psulin. This is what we need. So, guys, watch. Guys, look at me again. This kli, anything that's in the kli or in the airspace of the kli is no good because we're going to view the airspace as part of the kli. What about this kli is going up? I have in mind a kli for paraduma, and I put it over the airspace and catch it. That's what it means. Ushibachutzalei pasal. That's what it's. That's chutzalei pasal. So therefore, we're going to bring a raya that it's kimunach dami. This is, but you want to know if it's kimunach dami. Here comes the water. It's going up. It's coming into the kli. Now, what's the problem with this kli? I didn't put it there for the purpose of paraduma. But now I take a kli that I want for the purpose of paraduma, and I put it right here, in the parallel to the airspace of that kli. So if you tell me it's kimunach dami, then it will be puzzle, because once it hits that airspace, and therefore we can be paishit the shaila by Kabbalah that it would be a good zrika. The Gemara is going to ask the obvious question. This one has a bottom. That one don't. Okay, but again, this is what Rabbi Yochanan is telling Rav Asi. Okay, that's what we need. The second part says, Sarif piyal is zinuk. If you go ahead and take the kli and stick it directly on it, on the flow, mayim shebasaychib psulin ushebachutz like kasherin. Now, so the raya is from the first case. Haimai, my boy mine, abishen seifel noyach. Boy haimai, boy mine by zrika. We yes, by my that avir shein seifel inoyach because it bottomed out. Because poshele avish is seifel inoyach, and now you're going ahead and be poished from avir that is in the end. This kli by the paraduma has a bottom. It has a bottom. So what are you telling me? The airspace of a bottom is considered in the kli? I wasn't asking that. I was asking there is no bottom. Maybe over there there's no. The airspace is not. So I'm speaking about the Beatles, and you're discussing BMWs. Okay, man, I'm not speaking about the same thing. Says the Gemara, and for the Gemara, Tarti Kaboy Mine. He has two questions. Imtim Saloima Aveshain Seifel Noyach. If it's bottomed out, Lav Kimunach Dami. How about Avesh Seifel Noyach? Mai, what's the din? So in other words, he asked him two questions. When it bottomed out, and you're going to tell me the airspace is not like an airspace, it's not like Mitaychikli because there's no bottom. What would the din be if there was a bottom? And he's coming to answer the second shaila. You know, the is both. Imtim Sulaima. I can answer the second shaila that you have from paraduma. That in fact, since it has a bottom and there's an airspace there, it's kimunach dami and it's possible for paraduma. So we have two sources. We have a shaila from Zrika. Well, actually, if we're saying we don't have a shaila from Zrika, because since I need the vridin on top, and the vridin can't be what mitoich the kli. So I have to say the airspace is considered like it's in the kli. The airspace is considered like it's in the kli. That's what I have to say. And now I also have from paraduma the same raya that if you have a bottom, the airspace is considered mitoich hakli. Good. Says the Gemara. Rabbi Yosef Masni Hachi. Rabbi Yosef just learned that way. The shaila was from Karchim, and the attempted raya was from paraduma. Rav Kahana Masni Chavius, and Rav Kahana asked the shaila by paraduma. Boy mine, Masni Chavius boy mine, upashidle what? You know who's calling, guys, right? So Rabbi Yosef, he learned that the shaila was by Zurika, by Kabbalah, and the Pashtus was from Paraduma. That's the way he learned it. However, Rav Kahana Masni Chavius Boiminei Upashet Le Chavius. He said, forget about. There's no shaila about what There's no shaila about the Zrika, about Kabbalah, not a Kachim shaila, a Paraduma shaila, and he was pashted it. Rabba Masni Chavius Boiminei Upashele Mizorak. In other words, the opposite. He asked the shaila from Paraduma, and he was pashted from Kachim. So, guys, we have three different ways, the three variables, right? We have Rav Yosef's asked the kasha from Kachim, being pashted from Paraduma. We have Kahana, nothing to do with Kachim, Paraduma. And then we have Rabba, the shaila was Paraduma, and we pashted for Kachim, right? So, Iyat HaMoida says, Iyatamoida b'mizrak. Mizrak means the kli sharis. She efshalei b'lei zinuk. Guys, when you do the vridin have to be outside, correct? And therefore, if they have to be outside, and as we saw, the Kabbalah has to be from the neck of the animal. It must be that the airspace that is parallel to the neck of the animal, and the kli is considered part of the kli. That's obvious, right? Because again, we spoke out. If it's not from the parallel, guys, it's the davar acher. It's like coming from. It's got to be from the neck of the animal. If it comes from a different airspace, it's like coming from from the knife. It's like coming from the knife. It's geschmack. It's beautiful, beautiful sugya. Okay, very, very nice. Tanan Hasan. Nasnu yadai. Now again, we're discussing this paraduma action. So guys, now what? Now here's the pshat. The key to the sugya. The paraduma, when it hits the airspace, it can't be al yedei something that's makabel tuma. So watch. If this is the airspace and the kli was miyachid for paraduma, there's a gezeirus hakosiv that has to be done. That the havaya of the kli has to be betaira. So watch. If I'm over here and I can't. Obviously, I need another dimension. Picture this as a whole kli, and I'm like this, and the water is coming off my hand into the kli. Right, my water is coming off the hand into the kli. It's no good because my hand is makabel tuma. If my hand would be over here, and then let's say I'm diverting the water's coming down from a mountain, it can't hit the kli, but I put my hand over here 10 amas away. By the time it hits this, then it would be good. Again, the only problem of tuma is b'shas havayo when it's in the kli, when you need it to be the paraduma. If I put it over here, a plank or anything else, it doesn't make a difference as long as it's not there at that time. Okay, with that in mind, let's begin. Tan Hasam. Nasan Yadoi oy Ragloi oy Ale Yerakos. All these things have in common the Makabel Tuma. Ale Yerakos is vegetables that can be eaten. Kadeshi Aviru Mayim Lichavius. You're diverting the water into the ear space of the Chavius. Psulin. It's puzzle. And again, be in mind the word Sheyavru, that it should go ahead and be diverted into the ear space. Ale Konim, Ale Egoizim. You have reeds or nuts, Kshera, because they're not Makabel Tuma. Zaklal, Dava Makabel Tuma, Psulin. Dava that means Makabel Tuma is puzzle. Dava Shen Makabel Tuma is Ksherin. It's kasha. Minani Mili. How do you know that Dava Makabel Tuma would be in the process of making the Mayim Chaim El Kelly would be a problem? The pasuk says, Ach Ma'ayan, a Ma'ayan is a fountain, Ubar, Mikvei Mayim, but they both have in common is their bodies of water that go ahead and are metaher. Yiyeh tahar. Yiyeh, the havaya, they should be betaira. When you make them, they should be betaira. So now, what's the drasha? Ach mayanu bar mikvamayim yiyeh tahar hayvayasan. When they come into being, al yedei taira tehei. They should be al yedei taira. So our case over here, this mikvah, this mayim chayim el kelly, has to be al yedei taira. Amrav Kia bar Rabbi Yochanan Zoisei Meres. What do you see from this Mishnah? That Avir Kli Kli Dami. Guys, watch. Avir Kli. Again, what's the case? I'm diverting it, and since I'm right here by the diversion, it's you see that Avir of the Kli is like a Kli. Good. That why? Because it's not good. So you see that my diversion at the point of the Tyra, at the point where you need it to be Mayim Chaim Al Kelly, you see that it's no good. So that the ear space is considered like the Kli. Amar Rav Zera Rav Chia Bar Abba V'Dilma B'Shaisis. Maybe it's speaking, guys. Look, he like this. Here's the Kli. He's not over here. He's down over here, and it's pouring directly from his hand into the Kli, but not into the Avir. You want to bring a riot that goes over here. It goes into the Avir. Maybe it's not speaking where it goes in the Avir. Maybe it's speaking over here where it's going what? Directly into the Kli from his hand. That's what Reb Zera told Reb Chia Bar Abba. Samalei Tarda. Tarda is a strong Lashon, fool. Guys, look at the first white line. Yavru means you're going ahead and diverting it. So avar means to be over. It means it's in the airspace. Reb Chia bar Abba Reb Yochanan meidusa Reb Tzaddik nishnish Mishnah zu in the Mishnah Idias Tetnan Hey Rabbi Tzaddik al hazoichlin shekilachon bali egoizim shen ksherin. You have a zoichlin, you have a flow and you divert it through bali egoizim, which are not makabel toma shen ksherin. There was a mice in this place called what was exactly the place called Ahaliyah, the place not Hialeah, but Ahaliyah. It was in the place called what? Ahaliyah. So the mice is Ahaliyah, and they said what? It's kasha.